like to do now is briefly also talk about some of the other chapters in the atlas. First thing I want to show you after chapter 3 is chapter 6. So chapter 6 is about water, sanitation, and hygiene, which of course are essential for well-being and also essential for health. So that's the reason that I wanted to show you this chapter as well. I also wanted to show you this chapter because it contains some interesting formats for telling a data story. So the first chart in this chapter is about water and sanitation, the access to safely managed drinking water. And you can see here an area chart which shows you the share of the global population that has access to safely managed drinking water. And you can see that while I scroll, the visualization is fixed in the background, and you have some blocks of text scrolling over the visualization. This is sometimes referred to as scrollytelling. So people just scroll and the visualization in the background updates, and you, as a reader, you get additional information in these text boxes. So for the atlas, we have used this format in a lot of cases, and I think for some cases it works really well. So let me show you how the scrollytelling here works. So we introduce the topic here in the first step, where you can see the proportion of people having access to safely managed drinking water. The second layer is the share of people that only have access to basic water services, which means that they don't have access to water in their homes. They need to make a trip. A trip should be less than 30 minutes away, and the water quality might not be guaranteed. So this is a basic service, and then we also have people who have to travel more than 30 minutes to get access to water, or who may even only have access to surface water from rivers, for example. So this is an example of scrollytelling where you have a fixed visualization in the back that updates when new explanation scrolls over it in these text boxes. The next visualization also uses the scrollytelling format, but here I wanted to talk about something else. So this is a chart about the same topic, the access to basic drinking water services. And we have a dot for each country here. If I move over the chart, you can see that we have some European countries here on the left. And as we go to the right, where the percentage of access to basic water services goes down, we have some of the sub-Saharan African countries. And you can see here in the legend, the color legend, that we are looking at national averages here. And of course, this is something that we use a lot in our visualizations. We have one number for each country, very easy to work with. But in many cases, those national averages hide a tremendous amount of variability. And in this case, the chart is split open. So the national averages are split between rural areas and urban areas. And there you can see that in many countries, the access to basic drinking water services is very different in urban areas than in rural areas. In many countries, this gap is very, very wide. And I think this is something, when you talk about data literacy, this is something that you have to keep in mind, that one single number for one country is limited. Within countries, you have a lot of variability. So if you can get your hands on subnational numbers by region, for example, or if the numbers are split between rural and urban areas, I think that's something much more interesting to work with. It will give you a lot more detail and it will make people understand that those general country averages are only limited in scope. So I think um, later in this chapter, there's another example of how national averages are split up. Here, we're talking about sanitation services, basically how um, where people go to the toilet, if it's in their home, if it's shared, if it's maybe just outside. Um, Again, using the same scroll telling technique. And then here we see the access of households to sanitation services. Again, starting with the national averages, but then split up between the richest 20% and the poorest 20% households. And again, you can see that the gap in some countries is very, very wide. So these are numbers that national averages hide. So if these numbers exist by income level, for example, it's probably worthwhile to take a look at those numbers. Then the last thing I wanted to show in this chapter is this format. It's called Handwriting Around the World, and it's a collection of pictures of facilities or places in their homes where people wash their hands from many different countries and from many different income groups. So if you click one of these, you can see the families behind those images. And this is a format that we borrowed from a project called Dollar Street, a very interesting project. The aim of the project was um, to show how people in different areas of the world and from different income levels are living their lives, how their houses look like, what their transportation is, what food they eat, how they prepare their foods, what their house look like. And I think this is a very interesting approach because I think that many people don't realize how other people from other income levels or from other countries are living their day-to-day lives. And this project makes it very, very easy to assess the lives of others with pictures. There's also some videos in here. Um, and so this story about clean water and sanitation is borrowing from the Dollar Street project. But I would definitely recommend checking out the Dollar Street project. So let me move on to the last chapter I wanted to highlight here. This is chapter 11. It's about sustainable cities. The Sustainable Development Goal 11 is about sustainable cities, but we decided to focus on air quality. So for some of these goals, we focused on just one particular topic within the goal, and for goal 11, we focused on air pollution in cities. Um, the first visualization in this story is about the growth of urban agglomerations in the 1955-2035 time frame. It's just an introduction to show that cities are becoming more and more important. You can really see cities blowing up worldwide in this animation. And today we have more people living in cities in cities than outside cities. So it's just an illustration of how important cities have become. And then we're also using the scrolly telling format to talk about air quality worldwide. So the measure we use is PM 2.5, so a particular matter with a size of less than 2.5 micrometers. This is a technical term that's used a lot when people are talking about air quality and particulate matter in the air. So in the scrolly telling, we explain the thresholds that you see in the color scale, and so the color scale that is used on this world map. Then we talk about the share of the population in each country that faces values higher than the threshold when it comes to air quality. And in a lot of cases, this is 100%. So in many countries, you have more you have 100% of the population facing air quality that is not optimal. Then there was a study linking air quality to life expectancy. So they calculated the loss of life expectancy due to air pollution. And this goes up to 1 year and 10 months in Bangladesh. So this is really an important issue. Life expectancy is going down because of air pollution. So this is something that I also learned building this story. Air pollution was something, yeah, very abstract to me. But in many countries, this is a really big health issue. Um, Yeah, the map also zooms in and out when we are highlighting specific countries like China and India, for example. And we also have some data at the city level. So here you can see the air quality in different cities. And especially in India, there are some cities which have a very big problem with air quality. Last thing I wanted to show you here is this chart. In the text, we mentioned that China is making an effort to improve air quality in its cities. And so we are comparing the air quality of cities in China to cities in the rest of the world. And indeed, you can see that in many Chinese cities, air quality is improving. So the concentration of these PM 2.5 particles in the air is going down because China is trying to close coal energy plants, for example. And what I wanted to highlight here is that we are reusing the color coding here on the left of the chart. It's the same color coding as we used on the maps. Just to be consistent, I think the consistent use of colors is very important. To have one color mean the same across different visualizations is something that I try to pay attention to. Okay, that was everything that I wanted to show you about the Sustainable Development Goal Atlas, but I really invite you to take a look at some of the other chapters as well. Many have interesting visualization formats, so you will see other examples of the scroll telling that I explained to you. And I'm sure that some of these chapters might be of interest to you outside of health. So you'll get a lot of maps, a lot of interesting visualizations. I really recommend checking it out.